Welcome to UU Falmouth's webinar on the psychology of reality. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lew Stern, as most of you know, and I'll be leading our meeting tonight. We are recording the Zoom and making the video available on YouTube very soon under the title Psychology of Reality for you and others to access and share. I want to thank Rudolph Oldenburg for co-hosting this Zoom meeting, and Steve Treisman and Rudolph for creating our 8-part reality series taking place the second and fourth Wednesday nights of each month, starting last month and going through April. Steve is now going to bring us through a slide that Rudolph is going to post and share about the 8 parts and what's happening. Rudolph, can you share that, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Steve, if you would unmute yourself. Thanks.
So this is the series, and I just wanted to go through it very quickly. We've already had, this is number 3 in the series. The first one I did on animals I have known. Raleigh did religious thoughts and interpretations. Tonight we're up to February 12th, Get Real. And the next one's February 26th, How We Relate and Come to Agreement. And that's by Dan Jocelyn. It's a Buddhist perspective. March 12th, How We Know About the World Around Us, the First Steps in Sensory Inputs. And that's something that Rudolph Oldenburg will do. And it will probably be the most reductionist of the talks, talking about the biophysics, I think, of transduction. Yes. How We Measure Things by John Jackson on March 26th. And John spent his career measuring things, and he will surprise us with how something we thought would be the absolute measure of reality is in fact not quite so concrete. April 9th is Our Sense of Self Too Narrow? You and Your Trillions of Microbiome Friends. This is Jessica Mark Welsh and Betsy Wilder, and they'll be talking about the fact that even though our human genome is the amount, let's put it this way, the amount of DNA that makes up a human being is only partly human. And in fact, more of it is not human. It's the fellow travelers that live with us in each of our bodies. And that's the microbiome. And then on April 23rd, we'll have a wrap up and hopefully more discussion than lecture, and just talk about what we got out of all of it. And with that, Lew, you're on.
Thank you. So is everyone seeing this this slide, reality?
Oh, no.
All right, then I'm going to just get out of here, and I'm going to get back to here. And I am going to just talk for a minute before starting the slides. So as you know, we've muted everyone so that you can hear the presentations. We're going to be unmuting you so that when we go into small groups, we will be breaking up into small groups, discussion groups 3 times tonight for you to have the opportunity to share your points of view with each other. The groups will be divided randomly and will last about 2 of them for 15 minutes and 1 for 10 minutes. And for the rest of the time, I'll be presenting some key elements of psychology as they relate to reality and how we can create, understand, and live reality to its fullest. I'll be sharing the opportunities I've had to learn and help others over the course of 50 years as an international educational and counseling psychologist. So let me share. So many people assume that there's only one reality, and it is objective and fact-based. But in the next 70 minutes, we're going to be exploring the unique subjective reality that's experienced differently by each of us, that we create and can have great influence over. We're going to start with some of the benefits I hope you will gain from tonight. As you know, today, many of us are experiencing ourselves as being less patient, less empathetic and compassionate for people who have different views. Doing this is psychologically protective for survival. I was very lucky in my practice professionally to work with people from many backgrounds and makeups on 6 continents. In this webinar, I'll be sharing what I've learned from them about how each of us has significant control over the reality that we create in our mind and our body, and how positively we can respond to it. You may be surprised to consider how you can become more aware of and use that control in positive ways for yourself and the people in your life. By the end of the webinar, I'm hoping that each of you can find one or more ways to be more compassionate with yourself and others.
Okay. That's what's his name? Lew.
Okay, I just muted you. Thank you. So, patience, empathy, and compassion. That's the first goal of tonight. Many people assume that there's only one reality, as I talked about. With threats of the things and people we care about, we respond defensively out of fear. But I'm hoping that people can have more positive expectations, optimism, and resilience by having more control over the reality that we share and experience. We don't want to be disappointed, so we limit our expectations about the future. This can cause us to be less resilient around change and difficulties, the news, challenges, and unpredictability. By considering what we'll be talking about in this webinar, you may find that you can have more positive expectations, be more optimistic and resilient now and in the other times of change. As long as we are alive and open to new possibilities, we can become more hopeful, feel more confident, and experience greater inner peace. These are the 3 objectives I hope some of you can take away from this webinar. Many of us have taken psychology courses, read articles, self-help books, and tried to apply the principles of psychology to help ourselves and one another. But let's step back for a moment to remind ourselves of the psychology in each of us and between each other that is a core element of our personal and shared realities. Personality is so much bigger than the medical model that has been thrust upon us as to whether we are mentally with it. It is how we think. The world of our emotions, and how and why we behave the way we do. It is at the core of how we experience reality, how we create it in our minds, and how reality is influenced by the world and bodies we live in, and our minds and our neurochemistry, our genes and perceptions. But first, let's open our minds and think about how our own experience of reality can and how we can share it with others. As you look at this reflection of a sunset on Little Sipworset Marsh on Cape Cod, what do you notice? What are the colors, the light, the shadows, the depth of the water, the trees, what may lie beneath the beach and bay beyond? The warm breeze, memories that are triggered in your mind. What feelings may rise in your body from your past, from dreams of the future, a place to escape, stepping on the seagrass below, keeping your balance with each step on uneven ground, moving your glance to a seagull, soaring, feeling a school of tiny fish skirting your back. What else is in your created reality of this moment and past and future moments? If you've ever been with a new puppy, you'll probably remember the sweet smell of their breath. It draws its mother to it. It draws us to hug it and be close. Let yourself remember that breath, your smile, the love you have felt for a dog or another partner. What does it do for your heart, your peace, your gentle kindness? This is the reality you make from the experience that stays with you. The soft touch of a baby's skin, their warmth and need for holding, the love you feel back just by closing your eyes and thinking back to a moment or time when you held and cared for a baby, creates an everlasting reality that you can recall and share. The tip of the baby's ear, a giggle, a tender longing. Listen for a moment.
We cannot hear, Lew. I don't hear.
Well, what you just missed is the beautiful melody of a music box. Dun, da, 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 da. If you've ever heard the song of a music box, you can have the memory. You can feel it as it reverberates in your mind. Many of the people of you know the allegory of the cave story. And in it, Socrates says, suppose that the prison had an echo which came from the other side. Would they not be sure to fancy when one of the passers-by spoke that the voice which they heard came from passing shadows? What is the reality in the cave where all the people have ever experienced is a shadow from the sun behind them, reflected on the wall in the cave? If the sun sets in the western sky, a warming puppy's breath is sweet, the baby's skin so soft, a joyous melody is played on a music box, or a story is written or told, but nobody hears, sees, or communicates the experience to another. Are they real? How do we know? Does the reality exist? Is it not experienced if it's not experienced or shared? Let's see what you think, what your reality really is. So what we're going to be doing is, this is the first of our 3 10-minute to 15-minute breaks. You are going to be stopping these 3 times to contemplate and share your perspectives with several others. Be growing into groups of about 5 people. In a minute, you'll be brought together randomly with 3, 4, 5 people to answer the following questions. Are things that happen in the universe real if we don't perceive them directly and they're not described to us by others? How do we know? Start in your group by deciding who's going to go first, and then each person, without interrupting anyone else, will share for a minute their perspective. And then, after everyone has had a chance to speak for a minute, discuss each other's perspectives to see what you think the true answer lies, if there is one. You'll be brought back automatically after 10 minutes to the large group, and your small group discussion will not be recorded. If you're viewing recording of the webinar, some people will review this afterwards. You might find it valuable to put the recording on pause to think about the questions and talk about them with someone else. So let me stop sharing here. Okay, Rudolph is dividing you up. You'll get a sign that says join the breakout room. Just hit the join sign and you'll be in your small groups.
Yes. So I stop recording.
Thank
Yes.
you. So I hope that went okay and that you solved the philosophical question and the psychological question. So we have considered where reality exists and how we know what is real. But now we're going to explore three basic assumptions of the psychology of reality. So let me share again. Assumption number one, our reality is what we perceive, what we imagine, and what we feel. So it is not just through our senses, it's also through what we come up with in our heads and what we come up with in our body. So it's either inside or outside ourselves. And the second assumption is that wherever and however we experience reality, it is derived from our perceptions, imaginations, or feelings determined by our individual and shared psychology, including 7 key sources. So let's look at what those are. Our experiences. What are some of the most important experiences in your life that have shaped your view of reality? If you could just take a few seconds to think about that. What are some of the most important experiences in life that have shaped your view of reality? And what do you hold dear in your core beliefs, your values, your truths? How do they affect what you believe to be real? Mother Teresa had her own. How about you? What are the strongest emotions that touch you deeply, drive you to do what's most important to you? Feelings toward others, inner feelings about yourself, emotions about things you experience or do. How do they impact your view of what is true, what is important, what is real? Again, take a few seconds, think about what are those strong feelings you have that form and impact your reality. When you are satisfied, surprised, disappointed, or delighted, they are the standards of reality against which you judge whatever you experience. You get to control what you expect will happen, what the future should hold. And you can change your expectations with experience to make them more realistic or set higher goals. Our expectations are not beyond our control. The more we expect, the more we'll be disappointed. The less we expect, the less we strive. What is that happy medium for you? Our words, our symbols, and body language not only allow us to communicate with others and think and remember experiences in shorthand, they construct our reality. Through generations and communities of meaning, we can draw, write, signal, hug, smile, or sing to share our perceived, created reality with others. What words or symbols have special meaning to you?
He's looking. Here.
Someone, could you mute, please? I'll do that. No problem. Thank you. Do you have shorthand language you use with people close to you? Jean and I can just look at each other and have a sense we're about to say the same thing. At other times, we're totally removed and have no idea what the other person's thinking. Do you have people like that? Our memories. Of course, memories are stored in our minds, but they're also stored in our bodies, in books, in photos, and music. Each time we remember something, it gets restored in our memory with a new context and meaning based on how old you are then, what's going on in your life at the time, how you feel about the memory as you rethink it. No memory that you have once you think of it again, is pure. You have many memories stored of single instances from your past, from the original and each subsequent time you remember it. I recently visited the elementary school I went to from grades 3 through 6. Everything was tiny. Memories of my being bullied came back. Recollections and new memories combined so that it's hard to be sure what really happened 65 years ago. And what I saw there is an old man. How have your old memories changed over time? If you've never remembered them, they may be pure. Otherwise, they're changed with each time you remember them. Sorry for the picture. Each of us needs to make sense of our confusing world. To do that, we need to simplify and protect ourselves from conflicting realities. We do this unconsciously by using defense mechanisms to deny or distort contradictions between how we see ourselves, what we do, and how others see us. When Trump was convicted of 34 counts of falsifying business records in New York hush money trial, it did not align with how he sees himself. As he said, "I'm the most innocent man in the history of that country. We didn't do a thing wrong. The real verdict is going to be November 5 by the people." That is called defense mechanism, denial. And denial is not just a river in Egypt. We are not completely alone in our perceived realities. Which individuals or group do you spend time or communicate with who share your values or language, your views of what is real, some shared history in the same language, who you identify with, who you understand, who understand you, and who validate your perspective? Tonight, we're focusing on reality from the perspective of psychology and subjectivity. So far, we've started to explore the psychology of reality, but what about the assumptions about subjective reality? The first is that your reality and mine may have some aspects in common, but they also have a lot of differences. When we ask the question, how could they think that? How could they believe that? We share influences and we influence each other's views of reality. As Cape Codders, as baby boomers, as Gen Xers, as followers of different faiths, as New Englanders, parents or grandparents, environmentalists, scientists, teachers, builders, and writers, your reality is not mine and mine not yours. I may have liked Johnny Carson and you may never watched him or heard of him. You may see heaven as something to look forward to see your departed loved ones, while I fear it as something that makes no sense when I will cease to exist. Is your view of reality more real than mine? So for our second small group discussion, you'll meet with a different group, this time for 15 minutes. The question's more complex. Please take turns again sharing your individual and group views. This time, the question is, remember this, how does your individual psychology and subjectivity affect your reality today? How is it different from the people around you? We're going to bring back everyone after 15 minutes automatically. Rudolph will let you know a minute before. Again, the discussion question is, how does your individual psychology and your subjectivity affect your reality today? Try to go beyond the surface here. There really are significant differences between how each one of us even imagines that something is real. How does who you are, where you're from, your past, how you think, your language, your values. How does that affect your reality and your subjectivity? And how is it different from the other people in your small group? All right, Rudolph, if you would break everybody up, I will stop sharing. Thank you. If we have positive expectations, a trusting relationship with others or someone to help, and a positive attitude. The power of the mind, placebos can work as well or better than a scientifically created intervention. If you witness a crime or an emergency situation, would you intervene? One classic psychological study had smoke come out of a vent in a doctor's office to see when people perceive the reality of the situation as one where they are responsible and should say or do something. The biggest factors that determine if you are more likely to take responsibility and intercede are if you are alone or there are very few people there, if you and the other witnesses know each other well, or if the situation is unambiguous. Otherwise, you just sit there. Dozens of factors affect what we experience as real and how accurate you observe it. Your hunger, your fatigue, your trust, your responsibility, your confidence level, another person's similarity or difference from you. A beverage tastes less sweet and more bitter and sour if you taste it when you're watching an unpleasant emotional picture or you're remembering an unpleasant emotional memory. You literally, when you taste it, in those two situations, taste it differently. How can you be more aware of the surroundings, your surroundings, and how they may be influencing you and experiencing what or who is in front of you? When you focus mostly on yourself, your own satisfaction is the only source of hope. When you focus on others, the opportunities for hope are endless. How can you at this time focus more on others to make you feel more hopeful? One person feels more self-confident when they see themselves on video, while another person feels worse. I did a research study on this, and I did self-esteem evaluations before people got interviewed on video. The people who felt great about themselves when they saw themselves on video alone in a room of that interview felt even better about themselves, and that lasted a standard deviation higher for more than a week, and in most cases more than a month. But the people who had lower self-esteem to begin with did not feel better afterwards. Their self-esteem went down, they were more self-conscious. Just go back here for a second. Here we go. Most people are attracted as mates due to their similarities, but it's their differences that often keep them together over time. This is often used to help people get induced into a hypnotic trance. Strong-willed people are much more easily hypnotized to experience and react to reality differently. They're more suggestible, even though they are more strong-willed. Hypnosis is built on 3 steps: relaxation, focus, and suggestion. We can learn to hypnotize ourselves to use our minds to greater success and peace. What I do, since I used to do hypnosis as a clinical hypnotherapist with people, is I've taught myself to hypnotize myself. And in a shower, I simply put my hands up and I look at 3 things at once. You can see my hands here: my thumbs, my inner fingers, my outer fingers, and what's beyond my hand. By doing all 4 at the same time, your mind goes into a never state, a different state. And by doing that, and then giving yourself some suggestions, like I say, I am calm and serene. I am calm and serene. And I deep breathe, say it to myself in your mind. By doing that over and over, if you practice that for about a month, It's imagine what you can imagine what it might do for you. You have probably wondered who the real you is. Actors often let go of themselves to become the person they are playing. After a period of time, it can be scary when it's so easy to become a totally different person. The same thing can happen when we adapt ourselves to fit in, to be loved or accepted. In psychology, one measure of self-esteem is the difference between what we see as our real self and what we see as our ideal self. I already talked about this defense mechanisms, and they are unconscious, so we're not aware that we're using them. They're strategies that we use to cope with anxiety or discomfort associated with reality. We either ignore it, shift our emotions about it, or use logic to avoid the uncomfortable feelings. Cognitive dissonance reduction is one of the most common ones, where we're in a most common defensive mechanism when we're unconsciously experience uncomfortable or threatening dissonance between what we know, what we think, what we feel or perceive as real, and we unconsciously attempt to reduce the threat between the different views, what other people we know think, what we're seeing in front of us, and what we have in the back of our minds. People can change, but most of us doubt that that's possible. I often worked with doctors or corporate leaders who were unliked and untrusted by the people with whom they worked. Within 6 months, one senior investment manager changed how they related to others. They were kinder, more open-minded, more honest, and less intimidating. The toughest part for them is when they came back into the workplace. Usually, others have difficulty trusting that that's the real you, and they should take a chance at trusting, and it won't go back, or they'll get hurt and be taken advantage of. Can you have an open mind to allow people to change? Many people awake from a bad dream sweating, their legs running under the covers, feeling dread. To them, the dream is as real as if it was happening when they were awake. My wife was taught how to change a dream when it's happening to escape the bad feelings and put a different person into it, take her out of the dream, change the plot. I recently learned to stop, face, and resolve my fears during the day more instead of avoiding them, so I had to play it out at night in a bad dream. It really worked. Your memories change every time you recall them. I've already talked about that, so I'm going to go on to the next one. This is a memory changing. We have the capacity to heal ourselves if we convince our brains that it will work. Often when we think a pill or other intervention can help, even if it's only candy, even if we are told that it's only placebo, it can work. And sometimes it helps better than the actual pill. It's more than a positive thinking. When we create a stronger connection between our brain and body, we can reduce our pain, feel better, sleep better, reduce our fatigue, nausea, and even significant impact on other symptoms modulated by the brain. These are my two daughters. When you laugh, you take in oxygen, rich air. It stimulates your heart, lungs, and muscles, increases the endorphins that are released by your brain. It stimulates circulation and aids muscle relaxation, reduces your symptoms of stress. I was visiting my friend Newt, who's 104, at a rehab center this weekend. And he has this ability to make people laugh. When the nurse came over to him and asked, "Do you mind if I take your blood pressure?" he said, "Actually, I'd rather keep it." Here's Newt. If you're getting older, then you are a survivor. You are more resilient. You have less emotional volatility. You understand relations better. You've developed strategies for different situations that bring you wisdom that you can use and share with others. Life expectancy improves with age. The older you get, the longer your expected lifespan becomes because you've already survived most potential causes of death as younger ages. If you reach 65, for example, your life expectancy at that point is higher than it was when you were born. Every day you're alive is a gift to you and the others around you. What is it about two histories, values, perceptions, beliefs, and views of reality that brings about such a divide? How can what we have talked about so far tonight provide any insights? How these two divergent realities in our country right now came to be, and what we can do to come together, survive, and get through time. What part does superstition play in our reality? The perceived reality of bad luck and how to prevent it differs from based on where you grew up and where you live. Toss salt over your left shoulder in one country. Keep pieces of broken mirrors in another part of our country. Watch for a lizard scurrying away to tell you to flee trouble before it occurs. Keep protective charms on you or in your car. Use smoke cleansing to clear your space. Use crystals and stones with protective energy. Do a good deed and it erases your problem. I'm just going to, have any of you seen biofeedback equipment? If you can see me, this is a very simple biofeedback tool. It costs about $100. You can get them much more complex. What this does is it allows you to become conscious of the sympathetic nervous system controlled parts of your body. It will teach you you can focus on a meter or a sound, change the sound or change where the meter goes. And by doing that and practicing it, you can control, in this case, if you hold this up, it checks the amount of sweat you have on your fingers, and that conducts electricity better. The meter goes up or down, and by controlling where you push that meter, your mind can actually control that and reduce your stress. The same thing can be done as is with many practices like meditation, yoga. You can say to yourself, may I be healthy, may I be happy, may I be compassionate and at peace. If you do that at night, you'll be surprised by how much better you can sleep. So we only have about 6 more minutes, and rather than rushing that, if I could, let's not go into a small group, and we'll just open it up. I'll stop sharing. And if anyone wants to ask a question or make a comment or contemplate out loud, raise your hand and unmute yourself. Go ahead, Teddy.
Yeah, that was a lot, of course, to take in. And never mind. I still have to process. Somebody else.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Well,
I
Lew,
guess-
I'd love to hear an example from your life.
In what way? An example of what?
Of any of these themes that where you've learned.
Oh, sure. So let me give you an example. I have chronic anxiety. I have to take medication for it. I've had it since I was a kid, and it got worse because I got PTSD in my 30s. So I have to do a lot of different things that I took from my practice that really, really work. One is I use biofeedback. Two is I meditate. I do yoga. Three is I talk to other people. I go for therapy. It gives me a sense of where I am. I learn methods to sleep better. I take medication. All of those things together, if I keep doing them, really keep me at even keel. I think most people wouldn't guess that I'm a very anxious person. I'm usually really good. The thing going on right now in the country gets to me. So I'm limiting the amount of news that I watch or listen to or read, especially read. Jen and I go through it every morning, and she says stop, and I say stop. But I lead a men's group. A couple people here are in that men's group, and we just check in every week. That really helps. So many of these things, control over your body through your mind, thinking positively. Whenever I'm losing hope, I talk about who needs me to help them. There's one of our ministers in town when we learned Trump was first elected, and she was on the green with me. She said, "This is what I was born for," and I believe that. That's what I was born for. I think we're all born to be there for one another. So whenever I'm getting out of hope, whenever I'm feeling anxious, whenever I'm feeling like, what can I do? The answer is go to other people who probably need as much help as I do. Go ahead, Kathy, if you'd unmute yourself.
Well, I don't suppose it would be a surprise to anybody that I think laughter reduces stress. Very often, like down here, I'm a worship associate, and there are over 200 people in the church. And so when I get up, if I can say something funny and people laugh, it reduces my stress, and now I'm okay. And it's the same thing when I'm meeting somebody new. The other day, we had lunch with the Blakes, and I had to go back to my car, and this man with a cane and his wife were walking through the parking lot, and I said, "I'm sorry, the statute of limitations and the amount of people already in here with canes, you can't come in." And and the guy, his eyes got big, and the woman says, "Every restaurant we go to down here." So,
That's
and
great.
I can get away with being funny because I'm little, and I'm not threatening. So I can say these things and it works. But it works for me as well as
I love it.
One,
Another
one
another
tip.
friend, just one second. Another friend of mine has this goal every month. He sends out 60 bad dad jokes, and everyone on his list, he has hundreds of people on his list, and maybe 10 of them are real laughers, but that's all it takes. So then I pass them on to other people who ask me to send them. Everyone has their purpose. Steve, was that you?
no, it was me.
It was
Yeah.
Mead.
Oh, sorry, Mead. Go ahead.
Kathy and I are on the fourth floor of a condominium here in Florida, and we face the sunsets over trees. And every night that there is a good sunset, we get out there and we watch the sun go down. It's the most relaxing thing. Take everything else out of your mind. It's just this bigger thing that's happening, and it's a beautiful thing that's happening while you watch it. And it's just like a daily refresher. Sweep out
Wonderful.
webs.
And it
Love it.
happens every night over and over again.
Anybody else? Go ahead. Teddy, if you'd unmute.
Laughter is my go-to. Making people laugh is my go-to. Kathy, you and I have that in common. And I just feel so full when I can bring joy to other people, and that's my vehicle to do that. And it's spontaneous. If I try to think about it, it's not going to happen. And well, I make a lot more faces when I'm with people. I have this going on all the time. I smile, I laugh, except when I'm really depressed, and that's a different story, really. But Lew, what you were saying means a lot to me. I think I have some of the same kind of issues. So, gosh, this group has, the church fellowship has given me permission to be who I really am. And I'm very different than a lot of New Englanders. And it's a freeing situation. It's a sharing situation. That, gosh, I just hope that's the good, other than going to visit people or taking them for rides. That's that's where I feel comfortable in that space.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So we're out of time. So I just want to thank everyone for being part of the webinar. Um, the term psychologically can be distracting. What we're really talking about whose we are as people and how much control we can have over our hope, over how we change people's lives. Every time we're compassionate with someone, it changes their genes, how their genes express themselves. We can literally change who people are, how they live, how healthy they are by being compassionate with another person. Our hope is contagious. So I hope you take with maybe one or two things from this to be compassionate, to be more hopeful, to have more of a sense of inner peace. And I hope all of you will be healthy and happy and have a sense of peace in your reality. Thank you so much.